Okay, so we're moving right along this morning. Our professional education piece is going to be presented by Laureen Quick, and I will give you Laureen's bio. Laureen Quick calls herself a navigator for women 50 and older because she doesn't believe life after midlife is about settling down. It's about charting a bold new course. As the founder of Next Chapter Sisters, a supportive community for women stepping into life's next chapter, Laureen blends professional expertise with her own lived experience of aging, change, and reinvention. With an MBA, 2 decades of business leadership, and a background in adult learning, Laureen brings both heart and strategy to her work as a coach, speaker, and guide. She helps individuals, especially women over 50, find clarity, courage, and renewed purpose. Whether she's leading a workshop, hosting a retreat, or coaching one-on-one, Laureen's goal is simple: help people see their next chapter not as an ending, but as a new beginning. We're excited to have you, Laureen, and you may take it from here.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll just jump right in and pop this baby up. And I want to just start by saying welcome, everyone. This session that we're going to go through is really for you, but it is also something you can use potentially with the people that you work with. So there's kind of two ways to look at the slide presentation, the information that I share today. I encourage you first to think about yourself, and then at the end, we'll wrap up by talking a little bit about how you can use this with the individuals that you work with in the particular work that you do with seniors. The session is called Your Next Great Chapter, Finding Purpose and Passion in Your 50s, 60s, and yes, even beyond. And as Karen mentioned, I am a navigator, a coach, a speaker. I work primarily with women over 50, but I'm very interested in just the whole process of aging and how we view that in our society, as well as how we live it in our worlds. To begin, what I would like to do is to, again, emphasize this session is for you, and I'm going to be asking you to do some reflective work over the course of the next 20, 30 minutes. This is a time for you to think a little bit about your life, no matter where you are in that process. It's also a time to reconnect with your purpose. And I think ask yourself questions around how can I live a more fulfilling, more empowered, more exciting life. So we'll just jump right in and talk some more about why does all of this matter? And this matters because we're all living a little bit longer, and I believe we all should be living deeper, more profound lives as we age, because we're positioned to do exactly that. It means that in our 50s, 60s, and beyond, that our stories are not over. This is not an ending. This is not an epilogue. This is a bold rewrite. Aging, in my opinion, is not a slow decline, it is a deepening. And when I work with my clients, I really try to stress this to them. You are entering a new phase of life that we don't talk a lot about, we don't hear a lot about. So we all think we're all alone by ourselves. But the reality is we're all going through this. And it is an enormous, an incredible transformational point in our lives that we should be leveraging, taking advantage of, and totally and fully enjoying. It is a chance, it becomes a chance for us to finally take all that we've experienced in the world, in our lives, and to lead with wisdom, to live our life on purpose, and to become the author of what comes next. And so to begin that, I want you just for a minute to close your eyes or just gaze away out the window and think about a question I want to ask you. And that is, what do you want to receive in the next 20 minutes, in the next 30 minutes from this process we're about to go through? And I've asked it, and something has popped into your head, and I want you to make a note of what that is. What is it you want to get in the next 20 minutes out of this session? Is it clarity? Is it encouragement? Do you have a specific question you want to answer? Is there a new idea that you are seeking? I believe strongly we all have an internal guide, a spirit, an access to God, however you want to view that, and it will speak to you today as we listen through this process. So think a little bit about what you want, make a note of that, and know that you belong here and that we are going to reveal some answers to the questions that you might have. So when I work with clients in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, I always like to remind them that they are redefining themselves and that we have wisdom in our bodies, in our spirits, in our hearts that we have gained over the course of our 50, 60, 70 years of being on this planet. It can, if we choose, be an adventure with intention. It is grace with power. And most importantly, and again, not talked a lot about, you are shaping your legacy in real time right now. And when we talk today, we'll learn that legacy isn't just always about how much money you leave someone, but it's really about the life that you live, the example that you set, the people that you touch, the people that you love. And how we begin to understand and define the next chapter in our own terms is to get really clear on what we value and what we love, what we're passionate about. And out of that, it creates a purpose for ourselves. So what's important to remember here is purpose happens when our values and our passions intersect. And so here are some more questions for you to think about today. And again, listen to what just pops into your mind. What do you love? Is it family? Is it contribution? Making a difference? Is it being out in nature? Is it reading a book? And ask yourself, what matters most to you? And where do you feel most alive? Where, when you spend time doing this thing, being in this space, being with these people, does time fly? And you look up at the clock and you're amazed at how much time has gone by and you hadn't paid any attention to the passage of time because you were so alive in the moment that you were living. Get really clear about those things, what you love most, what matters to you most, where you feel most alive, because these will point you in the direction. They're like a compass to your purpose. So now I want you to take a moment, and I do want you to think about a time. You can write this out or just think about it. A time in your life when you have felt the most proud or the most fulfilled. And here's the question: what values were at play? And you can share in the chat if you would like, or you can just keep that to yourself. But again, this is a clue. These are questions you want to ask yourself when you're trying to identify what you value the most in your life. What's most important to you? Second question you want to ask yourself is, what do I never want to compromise? So for me, and I'll answer this one as an example for you. I always believe in truth. I do not want to compromise truth. And as I've gotten older, when I live that value, I find I need to speak. I need to speak up when things are not right, when things are wrong, when it's appropriate for me to voice a concern rather than just let it go. When I think about times in my life that I am most proud or fulfilled, my family comes almost right away to the top of that in the joy and the pleasure I get watching and seeing and being with my daughters and their families. And so that tells me that my family is very important to me, but it also tells me that even in my family, I can't not speak. I can't let things go by that don't matter. I have to speak up and say, here's a concern, here's something I'm worried about, or here's what I think is going on here, that kind of thing. What I begin to do when I live like that is I begin to live a life of integrity. And I role model that living for my daughters. And that's just one example, but it's something that might make sense or resonate with you. Sometimes, though, things get in our way. Things block us from making this transition, jumping in fully to this full transformation of our lives, and intentionally, with clarity, living what we want, what we choose. And what most often than not does get in the way are our identity shifts. This is a huge, huge time in our lives when everything is changing, where we may retire. So we no longer define ourselves as our professional work. We may have to step up our game and begin caregiving in our families. And again, that becomes a different role that we never played before. We may find our children are gone and no longer need us, and we don't know who we are anymore because we're not mother, we're not father, we're not family, we're not parent the way we used to be. Another barrier or challenge that jumps up is we have a lot of shoulds in our lives. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And we have a lot of old scripts or old patterns around our behaviors. And again, these stop us from living our best lives. I will give an example of this for you. I am very active. In fact, when I finish with this presentation today, I'm jumping in the car and going for a 3-day backpacking trip. Um, one of my one of my friends recently spoke to me and she said she was concerned because I was doing way too much and I should be home taking care more of my grandson. My family just had a grandson, our first one. And it was very interesting to me to hear her remark to me. She was trying to help me. She was trying to give me good feedback around, I think you're doing too much. You should be home helping your daughter with her son. And why aren't you doing all that? And it was just like, that's very interesting because that's what she does. And I could have listened to that script and felt like, oh yeah, maybe I should be doing that. But it was like, no, I very intentionally have chosen to live the life I'm living. I love my children. I love my grandson. I will work and be there for them as much as possible, but I'm also still living the life of adventure that I want for myself. So we can get stuck in these shoulds and we end up doing what everyone else thinks we should be doing or what we think we should be doing because we were told that 20, 30 years ago. Time to let that go. Easy said, hard to do. We also can experience burnout, and we also sometimes, as we're older, feel we're invisible and that we don't matter anymore. So, what's the point? And then, last but not least, another challenge to living our life fully is just the fear that we're starting over. When I turned 60, I woke up and I said to myself, I'm not going to talk about things that I'm always wanted to do anymore. I'm either doing those things or I'm not talking about them. And it took a lot of courage, I believe, on my part to begin to realize I'm choosing something different for myself now. I'm living my dreams. If I said Machu Picchu to go and see Machu Picchu was important to me, then I'm going to Machu Picchu. And I booked myself a tour and a flight and off I went. So there's a lot of fear associated with this, but the other option is to be sitting in a chair watching television, waiting for the world to go by and maybe, just maybe needing us. And I'm choosing a different script. And I encourage my clients to choose a world and a life where they feel alive and adventure is their life. And adventure can be many, many things, not just always physical, but where they're growing and changing and expanding. And so we can have micro rebellions. We can say, no, I'm not going to let all those shoulds. I'm not going to let that fear stop me from being who I am. So we learn to say no to what no longer fits. We start saying yes to things that light us up, and we begin to ask for what we want. This last piece is really interesting to me because I meet a lot of women. I primarily work with women, and it's very hard for women to say what they want. They've spent decades of their lives putting themselves last and serving the needs of others. I imagine also caregivers become attuned to putting themselves last. And then when it's time to put themselves first, they don't know what they want. And they don't know how to ask for what they want. And so a lot of work I do with clients is getting clear about what you want, but then also learning how to say, I want this, I need this, in a way that makes them feel good about themselves and allows them to negotiate with whoever they're conversing with, whoever they're working with, whoever they're living with, so that their needs get met. So I think of these as little micro rebellions and encourage you to think as you go through today, as you go through tomorrow, what's some ways that I can say no to things that no longer work for me? And what are some ways that I can begin to say yes to the things that bring me joy? And am I always clear and able to ask for what I want? Or do I hold back? These are all tools for clarity and direction. And at this level and at this point in the conversation, I will also share that everything we've talked about today, you could have the same conversation with the people that you work with. We've begun a little bit this morning about a values inventory. It's really around getting clear about what's important to you. Again, when I work with my clients, I encourage them to identify 3 to 5, no more. I mean, we can list 50, we don't need to. What are the top 3 to 5 values in your life that are very important to you? And then scrutinize or evaluate your life around how much of my day is spent living those values, and how much of my day is spent doing a whole lot of other things that are not important to me. And what I will say to you, what I say to my clients is, we don't have time to waste anymore. This is our moment. And we can't say, oh, well, next year I'll get around to living my values, or next week or next month or however long we want to put it off. I look at my life and go, I don't have a minute to waste. I don't have a minute to waste anymore because I'm 66 years old. I'm graced with great health. I don't know how long that will last. Anything can happen. I want to live fully. I'm going to live the values that are important to me. Another tool that you can use when you're working with clients or working with yourself is creating what I call a next chapter map. And that's really, it's not a plan. It's not written words in chronological order and things you can check off. It's really a one-page visual of where you are and the journey that you want to take to get to where you want to be. And use visual images. You can draw them, or you can even pull them out of magazines and create a collage if you want. But it's a mapping process to say, here I am today, and here's where I want to go, and this is the strategy I'm going to take to get there. And it includes things like, what are the values that you're going to live by? And then the next tool that I offer my clients is to consider writing a legacy letter. And those are letters that you write to the people that you love, assuming that you are gone. You have left this earth. You have died. And this is your legacy message. This is what your life meant. And then you look at where you are today and ask, would this letter be true? If I passed away today, would this letter be true? If it's not, what am I going to do about it? If these are the things that I wanted to bring into the world and gift to those that I love, to those that I wanted to help and support and care for, have I done that? And if I have not, now is the time to start. I struggled for a long time with this idea of legacy because I always thought it meant, how much money am I leaving somebody? Or am I gifting to the community a foundation? Or it always was connected. Legacy was, to me, always connected with money. And what I have learned over the last year or so is it is primarily not. In fact, money's nice, but the real legacy that we leave people is the example that we leave that inspires and encourages others. And that can be in a very personal level, at the level of family and those that we love close, but it can also be at the level of community. How have I lived my life so that I have inspired the community that I have lived in, supported, and also loved? So, legacy isn't what you leave behind in terms of how much money you've got in the bank and are giving to someone else or to something else. It truly is how you live now. And who are you shaping today through how you show up? And this legacy writing letter really allowed me to begin to see that there's more to legacy than leaving a gift of money, or even a written book or something that leaves my mark on the world. All right. And then here, I do want to talk directly about the application of all of this to the work that you do. These conversations may or may not resonate clearly or directly to you today, depending on where you are in your life, but they are ones that will, I think, connect and relate to the people that you work with. They are questions, they are thoughts, they're a process that your clients are facing as they go through transitions. They are also questions for caregivers who feel depleted, and even work teams who need inspiration. And my message to you is you don't have to have all the answers to these questions. You just need to know what questions to ask. And today I've given you some of those in this conversation. With that, I'm going to conclude and we'll move into questions. But I do want to thank you. If my presentation resonated with you this morning, I'd love to connect with you. I do offer something called the Connect and Elevate call. And I can share that link in the chat as well as we wrap up today. So my next question to you all, if I can figure out how to unshare my screen, would be, stop share, is what questions do you have? How can I answer thoughts that have come up over the course of the last 20 minutes? Or have I blown you all away and you're so profoundly struck by what I have to say, you're speechless?
I think that's very true. Um, there's a lot of great content, Laureen, trying to pull apart. I'm sure a lot of questions that people are probably milling around in their heads.
I have one. As you work with women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, do you see a difference in, you know, maybe by decade or generationally, the things that are blocking? Is it, is it more predominant family and, are the women who are both family and working, are they struggling differently than those who were just working? I'm interested in any observations in the generational difference, perhaps, of aging.
That's a great question, Dara. And I think yes is the answer. When you are in your 50s and you haven't retired yet, or you're about to retire, or you've just retired, you're just starting the transition. And work is still an important, I mean, think about this. For decades, we have defined ourselves by what we do. And now that's gone. And I think for women in their 50s, they're almost like, well, shouldn't I find something to replace that with? So maybe I need to take a part-time job, or maybe I need to go back to work, or maybe I need to start a business.
Yeah.
And then when you're in your 60s, you've resolved all of those kind of things. You've figured those pieces out, and you've more often than not, you've let go of the professional life that you've lived, and you're more into the creative play. Um, Not necessarily, though. I mean, I do have some women in their 60s who are running businesses of their own, right? So they picked that up and they ran with it. But interestingly enough, when women start businesses in their latter years, they tend to start businesses that have a purpose, that have some kind of meaning to them. It's not about making money. They, of course, want to make money to supplement their income, but it's really about, am I giving back in some way or another? Or am I working with people that I love to work with and that I'm making a difference in their lives? So work becomes more meaningful, I think, in general terms. Women in their 70s, you know, there's a lot of concern about visibility, in even mobility, right? We get very worried as we age about whether we can get out and do things, and then do people even see us anymore? We become, as we get older, we get more and more invisible in our culture, and people don't notice us. They kind of chalk us all up into one category, and and boom, chicka boom, there you go. One thing that all women have in common is the need for friendship. It seems to be a real common thing, and I assume this is in many cases true for men, although I can't speak directly to men. Some of the men in the group could share today. Women and their friends become critically important to them as they get older. They look back and go, oh, the friends that I had in my 20s were college friends that slowly faded away because we separated over geographical distances. My family was my focus. Then the friends that I had in my 30s, my 40s were really, I was mostly friends with the kids' parents that my kids ran around with because we all did school stuff together. But then as they've gone off to college, we've lost touch. I don't really have them in my life anymore. Oh, and then when we get into our 50s and our 60s, we start to think, I really want some deep connection. I really want some deep, close friends. And oh, by the way, I don't know how to get that. I don't know how to make friends. So they struggle a lot with finding their people, finding their tribe. And yeah, but they're really hungry for it. Also, I would say there's always big issues around marriages. You know, in many cases where we see a lot of divorces, or we see death. So we go through those losses. But even if we don't, the marriages are really different because both of us, this is phenomenal to me, and I experience this myself in my own marriage. We are both aging, and in many cases, we don't talk about it. So my husband was 15 years older than me, and he and I never talked. I look back now and go, I can't believe it. We never talked about the physiological changes going on in his body and how he was losing muscle. And I even think mentally and emotionally he was shifting and changing. We never talked about that. And if you have two people that are here and then they're both going through changes and they never talk about them to bring them back together and understand what's going on, the gap gets wider and wider. And the next thing you know, you're kind of living with someone that you have as a roommate more than you have as a spouse or a lover. So the relationship stuff becomes very important. I do have a group, we call it the Evolution of Us, along with the Next Chapter Sisters. And in the Evolution of Us, I have men and women in their senior years talking about relationships, and learning how to reinvent the relationship they have with the person that they love most in the world.
Sherry.
Hmm. Yeah, Laureen, that was amazing. I love the information that you shared, and I'm very thankful. So thank you for sharing that today, and especially the roadmap. So that was awesome.
You know, what I've learned in life is you can have plans, but plans get shoved in a drawer and no one ever looks at them until later. It's like, oh yeah, I had that plan. I think I'll go back and look and see what I've accomplished. Maybe I've gotten something done, right? But if you draw a map that's a visual and you put it up on your wall and just stare at it every once in a while, you'd be amazed at how much you follow that map. It just stays in your mind with clarity. For me, speaking my truth is important, and so it's on my map. It's like I need to know at the end of the day that when something wasn't right, or when something was right, I spoke up instead of letting it pass. And it's hard work sometimes to say this isn't right. We need to have a conversation around this. What's really going on here?
Yeah, I really like that opposed to the dream board, right? Everybody has a dream board and everything. I think
Vision boards, yeah.
I think I thought about that and I'm like, that is so like needed. Like I'm gonna do a roadmap board, not a dream board. Like, because you can have this dream board and pie in the sky, right? But if you don't have the roadmap to get there, you'll never accomplish it. And so I just made that connection today. So thank you.
My pleasure. Good.
So I have another question for, oh, go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be very interesting as time goes on in the generation. I'm one of the last of the baby boomer group, that how the shoulds change generationally, like Dara was touching on. The shoulds for us and that connection to what those were be interesting in the next generation and the generation after, how those shoulds change, how much more progressive the identity of yourself and what you want out of life frees you up for the generations yet to come.
I agree. I look at my daughter's generation and go, wow, they live their lives very differently than how I chose to live mine. And
Absolutely.
wow, and I can only imagine what that will be reflected in as they're older. I believe it's progressive. I believe it's positive. But at the same time, those shoulds are hidden when we're young. We don't see them, right? I didn't know all these shoulds that, I should be nice, you know? I should get along. Those were messages from my parents that I didn't think of as shoulds, just that's what everyone's supposed to do is be nice and polite and get along. And so I did that at the expense of myself.
Mhm.
So I don't think my daughter's raising her grandson to be quite the same way, my grandson to be quite the same way. She wants him to be able to speak what he needs to now instead of waiting until he's in his 50s or his 60s to figure it out. She does that now too as well. So yeah, I think it'll be fascinating. Absolutely.
So I do have another question for you, Laureen, and it touches on this concept of the loss of identity with work. I see that I mean, obviously you see it with women in my clients and travels. I see it with men as well. And I think the men probably struggle worse because their identity is more heavily tied to their work, at least those that are retiring in this kind of time frame. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations on what a person in the pre-retirement should be doing and should be thinking about to prepare themselves for that transition and to ease that loss of identity?
I do, and this is work I'm still doing with myself, so it may be applicable to everyone. I would hope. We think we are loved by the contributions that we give to the world. So I think this is more true for men, just from my own observations and conversations I've had. I am loved because I'm the main breadwinner in the family. We'll use a real stereotypical example. And so when I don't have that role anymore, no one will love me. Women, we're the same. We are loved for all of the care that we give. And when I'm not giving so much care anymore, well, what's my value? Who would want me? Because I'm not taking care of everyone. So this is hard work. Asking yourselves these questions, what is my value? And understanding that value, who I am, is why I am loved. How can I say that more clearly? An example from my own life, I plan a lot of trips and I take my girlfriends on those trips. And one of the conversations I had with myself recently was, well, people want to always go with me on these trips, not because they want to be with me, but because I plan these really great trips. And what if I didn't plan those great trips? Would they still love me? And, it's still working on all of this, but it's like my family doesn't love me because I'm the mother. My family loves me because I'm me. My friends don't love me because I'm the planner. My friends love me because I'm me. And so what does that really mean to be me? And if you can come out of your 50s with a really clear understanding of that, I think it will be really much easier, I should say, for you to deal with any transitions you're going through. To feel loved is important to all of us. And as we get older, I think that these transitions, plus this idea that we become invisible, we start to feel like no one values us. But we have to value ourselves first. So the short answer, Dara, is really learn to love yourself, learn to value who you are, and trust that other people will love and value you too. And the transition should be easier and more authentic, as well as your relationships.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you put your contact information, Laureen, in the chat? I've had a couple of people that have asked for you to do that.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you a couple of different things. I'll give you my phone number. Yeah, make sure I give you the right one. My email. You can always find me on Facebook, always. I'm pretty active there. And I will go ahead and get you that Connect and Elevate link as well. But I'm going to have to shrink my thing down here for just a minute to do that. I'm always love to talk to people. And
Laureen's awesome to have coffee with. Just like put it on the calendar. You know, it's great information sharing.
absolutely. And if you prefer Zoom, I'm open to Zoom. I mean, it doesn't matter. And I'm always learning every phone call that I have, every conversation that I have, I should say. I get to learn more about you, but I also get to learn more about life. And that's that calendaring link so that you can book a session with me. It'll show you my availability. Just we can visit and talk. There's no charge. There's no expectation, no pressure. But it's a conversation we could have around your experience as you're getting older, or even if you want to talk about your clients, I'm happy to share with you my opinion and perspective on that as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was very valuable, I think, for everybody.
Well, I would just say this is the best time of my life. I have not had more fun than I've had in the last 6, 7 years of my life. I'm having a ball, and I feel sad for anyone who's in their 60s. You should be living life to the fullest. Take advantage of every single moment. You do not have a moment to waste because we never know when it's going to end. We never know when something's going to happen to limit us. So I'm racking up memories, and I encourage every single one of you to do exactly the same thing. You don't have a minute to waste. And I don't care if you're 30, you don't have a minute to waste. Yeah. Well, thank you all for having me today. It's been my pleasure.